They read my family's will out loud and skipped right over my name. I was standing there, watching my sister take credit for everything I built, while my mother pretended I'd never existed. Hi, I'm Eleanor. For years, I was the ghost in my own family story, erased from the photos, the company, even the memories, until one signature brought the truth crashing back and changed everything. Have you ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most? If your family tried to rewrite history without you, would you fight for justice or let them win? Drop your story or your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from those who refuse to stay silent. Here's how it all started, the day my name became the only one that lasted. They poured champagne like I wasn't even there. I was sitting right next to them. The scent of expensive perfume and aged whiskey floated in the air like a fog I couldn't shake. I sat at the edge of the long white-draped table in the oak-paneled hall, back straight, hands wrapped around a glass of water. No one looked my way. Not one glance. They chatted, toasted, smiled, recycled the same tired stories about the great man we lost. But me, the eldest daughter, was just a ghost they had collectively agreed to ignore. 6 years ago, I signed away my shares to save the family company from collapse. Dad had just had a minor stroke. The stock was crashing. Mom told me, family means trust, not contracts. I believed her. I believed all of them. That was the last time I entered a battlefield without armor. Now I was back, on the day they read the will. My chair was at the very edge of the table, near the service door. No name card. No greeting. Vivian, my mother, stood at the head of the table in designer black, playing grieving widow, though her eyes sparkled like she'd won something. She smiled at Silas, the golden boy of the family, now front and center in every photo, except the originals. I just want to say a few words, Vivian purred, her voice syrupy and lethal. Gregory left behind an extraordinary legacy, and Silas, our son, has carried that torch so beautifully. Applause rippled through the room. I said nothing. No one looked over. I may as well have been the help. Mr. Cressfield, our family's longtime attorney, rose quietly and laid a thick folder on the table. As per Gregory Ray's final wishes, I will now read the legal will, signed and notarized 3 months before his passing. I lifted my head. Silas leaned back, arms folded. Vivian blinked in disbelief. To my daughter Eleanor, Mr. Cressfield read slowly, I leave everything. Silence. To others, nothing. It landed like a grenade in a cathedral. Silas shot up. What? She gave it all up years ago. This has to be a mistake. Vivian gripped his sleeve, voice hushed. Sit down. The lawyer's expression didn't change. He calmly removed a thick envelope sealed in red wax. He also left this for Eleanor. It says, to be opened only if they deny you again. I stood. For the first time that morning, eyes turned toward me. I didn't flinch. Mr. Cressfield continued, firm and deliberate. To the only one who never asked for anything, I leave everything. I reached for someone else's untouched wine glass, raised it slightly, and locked eyes with my mother, then Silas. Now you see me. No one breathed. Then, glass shattering, Silas hurled his drink at the floor. I didn't blink. I turned and walked away. As I passed the memorial table, I paused at Dad's portrait. My hand touched the wooden frame lightly. Not out of forgiveness, out of respect. Behind me, I heard the whisper of an older cousin. I didn't think she'd come back. I stepped into the hallway. A draft of cold air kissed my cheek. The snow outside had started to melt. A small metallic weight settled into my palm, the key to Dad's private safe deposit box. Passed to me not in words, but timing. I walked slowly down the stone steps outside the estate. My heels echoed against the damp gravel, each step peeling away the varnish of false memory that clung to this house. Through the tall window near the parlor, I caught a glimpse of my reflection. Still there, still standing. A breeze swept through, flaring my coat and carrying with it the last bits of thawing snow. I paused at the iron railings, staring toward the pine ridge beyond the estate. It was a cold morning, but the wind had changed. Inside, the room behind me was beginning to buzz, panic setting in. I could picture it in slow motion. Vivian's frozen expression, Silas's fists clenched around a shattered stem, and Mr. Cressfield's steady gaze affirming what they couldn't undo. The cameras in the corners were still rolling. I didn't look back. I smiled just a little. If this was the end of their performance, I was now writing the next act. The lights inside faded behind me. Ahead, sunlight spread across the gravel path leading to the gates. Each step forward felt like shedding a layer of shadow. The sign still read the Ray family estate, but not for long. I slipped the key into my coat pocket and held it tight. It was time to reclaim what they never thought I'd dare to touch. They always remembered what I gave up, never what I protected. I sat in the quiet of my hotel suite, the blinds drawn just enough to let the aspen sun stripe the carpet in long lines. The envelope Dad left was heavier than it looked, aged and embossed with the same initials that once adorned his cufflinks. GW. My fingers hesitated over the wax seal, as if breaking it would reopen something deeper than legal truth. Inside was a folded document, a notarized agreement dated July 2017. I blinked. This wasn't in the will. It was a private transfer. My father had secretly gifted me 11% of the family holdings Class B shares during the company's darkest days. Alongside it, a second envelope held a handwritten note. If they ever forget you, let this remind them that I never did. They always remembered what I gave up, not what I protected. By the time I poured coffee and opened my laptop, I already knew what my next move would be. Across town, the Ray Estates conference room buzzed with tension. Silas stood near the glass bar cart, swirling whiskey like a man already celebrating. She's bluffing, he told their private attorney, Mark Tillman. She walked away once, she'll do it again. Mark's brow furrowed. That may be, but the will was executed legally. And the public optics. Silas slammed the glass down. I don't care about optics. She's not taking the company. She doesn't belong here. Vivian appeared in the doorway, dressed impeccably in navy satin. Lower your voice, Silas. Anger doesn't photograph well. She's going to embarrass us. She already has, she said quietly. At 10:43 a.m., I stepped into the shareholder meeting for Ray Holdings. It was the first time I'd been seen in public by this board in over 6 years. I wore matte black, tailored and sharp. My only accessory was Dad's old Omega watch, polished, ticking, inherited. The boardroom fell quiet. Journalists pressed closer. Flashbulbs clicked. And I walked calmly to the podium, laid my folder down, and opened the first document. My name is Eleanor Ray. I currently hold 26% of Ray Holdings voting shares. I am not here to request recognition. I am here to reclaim it. Gasps rippled through the room. Silas leaned forward. That's impossible, she doesn't. I turned toward the projector and clicked to the first slide. A clean notarized copy of the 2017 private agreement filled the screen. This document confirms a direct transfer of equity from Gregory Ray to myself, dated and filed. Combined with the trust outlined in the will, I now possess voting control over any decisions regarding company direction. Vivian stood. Eleanor, please, this doesn't have to be public. We can meet privately, discuss terms, keep the family intact. I looked at her unmoved. Terms? You forgot I ever existed. Now I'm reminding you that I built this with you. With him. You gambled with my silence. That contract expired. She faltered. This will destroy the Ray name. Then maybe the Ray name should have stood for something more than inheritance. I clicked to the next slide. Silas's face froze. This, I said, is an audit of personal expenses filed as company expenditures under Silas Ray's direction in the last 3 fiscal years. On screen appeared a list of misused funds: $47,000 on yacht rentals, $28,000 on private crypto consultants, $11,000 on a bachelorette weekend in St. Bart's listed as client engagement. Murmurs erupted. One of the older shareholders leaned back, arms crossed, watching Silas squirm. This company was built on my silence, I said. But I won't bankroll your arrogance anymore. The meeting ended in chaos. Reporters surrounded the exits. Flashbulbs chased names down hallways. I walked through them with stillness. Vivian intercepted me as I stepped into the corridor outside the boardroom. She closed the door behind her, her eyes steely but desperate. "Eleanor, this can't go on," she whispered, voice trembling beneath the polish. "We're still family, no matter what's happened." I met her stare, cold as the aspen wind. Family? Or a nameplate for your pride? You only remember me when you need to control me. Vivian straightened, dropping her mask for just a second. If you push any further, you know there are things from the past best left buried. Don't force my hand. I laughed, low and bitter. Threats don't work on me anymore, Mother. The only thing that scares me now is ever becoming like you. She recoiled, searching for words that would wound me. But I was already gone, striding away down the hall, my footsteps crisp on the marble. Have you ever realized that the people who should protect you are the ones who hurt you most? That moment when you see your own family as strangers, and it burns more than any betrayal from the outside. If you've ever felt that kind of pain, share your story, or just type 7 in the comments. Now, let's see what I did with that pain next. Back in my suite, I opened my inbox. A new message blinked unread. From an unknown sender. The subject read, "Careful." The message said, "If you keep going, we'll tell them why you left 6 years ago." I leaned back, stared at the screen. Then I smiled. Let them. I've already buried that ghost. The phone rang, a number I didn't recognize but with an old familiar area code. I picked up, expecting another threat. Instead, Mrs. Harlan's gentle, gravelly voice filled my ear. She'd been a friend to my father, a longtime shareholder, a woman who never bought into Vivian's pageantry. "I always knew Greg was keeping something in reserve," she said, not even bothering with pleasantries. "You did right by him today." A lump caught in my throat, pride and relief in equal measure. "Thank you, Mrs. Harlan. I don't intend to lose quietly. Not anymore." "Good. I think your father would have liked that." I placed the old crystal tumbler, once Mom's favorite, on the desk, filled it with ice water, and took a slow sip. The weight of it in my hand felt solid, familiar. It was one more thing they'd forgotten I could take back. Across the room, one of the assistants, a young woman, barely 24, watched me as I gathered my documents. Her eyes didn't hold fear. They held awe. Maybe this wasn't just vengeance. Maybe this was the start of something new. They built themselves into legends, but only because I stayed silent. 3 years ago, at the Ray Foundation's charity gala, I stood in the shadows behind the curtain, watching the scene unfold. Silas and Vivian glided onto the stage, smiling for the crowd and the press. They thanked each other, thanked the board, thanked the loyal staff who made this dream possible. My name was never spoken, even as the donation plan projected onto the screens was one I had written, down to the final decimal. That night, I told myself it didn't matter who stood under the lights, as long as the work was done. I realize now it was never about the work, it was about the story people would tell. Tonight, Denver is bright with city lights and gala banners. Silas and Vivian arrive at the downtown Marriott, working the crowd with the effortless grace of seasoned actors. He shakes hands, she leans in for photos. Their names buzz through the ballroom like a brand of their own making. In their world, the storm has passed. In mine, it's just gathering force. I'm not here for the party. I'm here for the reckoning. While they toast to the enduring legacy of the Ray family, I sit in my home office, the walls lined with campaign binders and legal pads. Across from me, Lana Keene scrolls through old email chains, her eyes sharp beneath tortoiseshell glasses. We both know how this game works and how the board is about to change. I slide a flash drive across the desk to her. You'll want to listen to track 2. That's the kitchen argument. Date stamped, verified. Lana inserts the drive, eyebrows lifting as she listens to Vivian's voice, cold and absolute. You don't have the image for this family, Eleanor. Let Silas handle the press. Don't make things difficult. Lana closes her laptop. You ready for this to go public? I look her straight in the eye. It's long overdue. At the gala, the evening builds to its scripted peak. Vivian takes the stage to deliver the keynote, Silas at her side. Her speech drips with the language of legacy, community, integrity, family. She's in her element, radiating a matriarch's strength, the crowd in her palm. When the floor opens for questions, Lana stands up from the press row, voice clear and professional. Mrs. Ray, could you clarify who drafted the operations plan for the 2019 charity drive? The board minutes credit the leadership team, but there are other names on the planning documents. Vivian's practiced smile twitches. Of course. Our family is a team. All major initiatives are reviewed and approved together. Silas cuts in, irritation peeking through his mask. We pride ourselves on unity. There are no solo stars in the Ray family. A wave of polite laughter, but I see the flash of doubt in a few faces. After the event, Lana texts me, "Be ready. It's about to start." The next morning, my phone vibrates off the table. Social feeds are exploding with a leaked backstage video. Vivian, caught in a private moment, turning to her PR manager. She's not to be mentioned, understood? Eleanor's name isn't good for our brand. It's raw, it's real, and it's viral. Within hours, another file surfaces. This time, a voice memo, Vivian again, recorded years ago. You either play by our rules or you step aside. This is Silas's show now. Every message, every memory I'd archived, is coming back as evidence. Journalists dig deeper. Hashtags trend. Hashtag who is Eleanor? Forums fill with speculation and, for the first time, questions about the missing sister and the reality behind the Ray family portrait. I watch it all unfold from my desk, a glass of water sweating beside my hand. Next to it, the hardcover of Reputation Warfare sits open, a silent reminder that sometimes the battlefield isn't the courtroom, it's the narrative itself. Lana calls. We're ready to run the exclusive. You want the final say? Absolutely. Make it black and white. I want the focus on what matters. That evening, the interview premieres online. The video opens in monochrome. My face is calm, steady. I speak directly, no bitterness, just truth. My father once told me, people will learn to shine by switching off your light. But the good you do, the work you put into the world, that endures whether or not they say your name. The screen flashes with the digital PDF, the original 2019 operations plan, annotated in my handwriting, signed with my initials. I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here because stories matter. And facts matter. Sometimes they're all you have left. The interview ends. But the echo is only beginning. The comments section lights up. Beneath the article, an anonymous account posts, "When I was a kid, Eleanor was the only one who ever listened to me." That night, headlines bloom across business sites and social media. Legacy lies? Ray matriarch under fire. Charity queen, silent daughter. Who built the Ray empire? I see the first photos from the hotel lobby. Vivian, blinking in the flash, her perfect composure cracking as she pushes past reporters, the marble floor reflecting her stumble. Silas is nowhere to be found. At midnight, my office lights still glow. The ping of notifications is relentless, a chorus of texts, emails, interview requests. But the only one who walks through my door is Silas. He drops a thick file on my desk, his voice low and rough. "You're playing a dangerous game, Eleanor." I meet his gaze, letting him see the steel in mine. "No, Silas. I'm just removing the mask." He studies me a moment, then turns and leaves, the echo of his footsteps a coda to the performance he thought he could control. I close my laptop and lean back, breathing in the quiet after the storm. For years, I let them write me out of the script. Tonight, I wrote myself back in. And this time, everyone's watching. She spent her life painting over cracks. Now the whole mirror is falling. Sometimes, it takes just one memory to make the present come undone. I was 17, waiting outside my guidance counselor's office, an acceptance letter to Harvard tucked in my bag. Vivian found me before I went in. She took my hand, her smile like polished glass. "A good woman makes sacrifices quietly," she said. "You're the foundation, Eleanor. Foundations aren't meant to be seen." That afternoon, I turned down my dream because I was told to be invisible for the sake of the family. That was the first time I let her rewrite my future. It would also be the last. Today, Vivian sits in her living room, surrounded by soft lighting and curated bookshelves. Her live stream setup is flawless. She's built a personal brand out of perfect angles and gentle wisdom. This morning, though, her face is tense beneath the foundation. By noon, the press has received a package from me. Scans of the property transfer she forced me to sign, audio of her dismissing my work as unpresentable, screenshots of the family photo archive, showing my name, then not. I know the story will travel faster than I can drive across town. Vivian goes live at 2 p.m. She's in pearls and powder blue, voice trembling at all the right places. There have been misunderstandings, but our family stands together. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time. In the scrolling chat, the questions turn sharper, more demanding. She repeats herself, like an actress caught between takes. That night, the studio lights in Channel 7's talk show set are harsh and honest, no filters, no retakes. Lana Keene introduces me as a former silent member of the Ray family, and the camera cuts to my lapel. I'm wearing the old enamel pin Vivian once gave me as a child, a symbol of pride that now means only freedom. The conversation starts gentle. Lana asks about my childhood, about charity drives and board meetings. I answer quietly, simply, describing events, not feelings, not accusations. Vivian sits across from me, composed at first, but her eyes dart to the producer's table, searching for a lifeline. Then Lana's questions turn. "Did you ever feel erased, Eleanor?" I look at Vivian, and, for the first time, I don't look away. "Not erased," I say, "but strategically forgotten. There's a difference. To erase is to deny existence. To forget is to choose what you want others to see." Vivian interrupts, her voice brittle. Eleanor, you know how much we tried to protect you from public scrutiny. I answer, calm but sharp. Protect me? Or protect the brand? The room goes still. On the monitor above, images scroll. Family portraits with me, then without. Suddenly, a voice breaks in. Audio. Raw. Clipped by a staffer in the control room. Vivian's own words, from a meeting months ago. That girl will never measure up. She's a disappointment. The studio mics cut for a beat. Dead air. Then Lana signals for them to roll. It's as if the last barrier has broken. Lana puts the final question to Vivian. Did you instruct your team to remove Eleanor from the public record? Vivian's hands tremble as she stares into the camera. I only wanted what was best for the family. Sometimes hard choices. But the comment feed explodes with #EraseButHere. A young woman in the audience whispers to her friend, I used to think Mrs. Ray was inspiring. Now she just scares me. I let the silence hang. Then I open my folder and hold up 2 photos. This was the Ray family portrait used for last year's gala campaign. I show the doctored version. Only Vivian, Silas, and Dad. This, I say, flipping to the original, was the real photo. I was always there. Even in memories you manipulated, I was always there. Vivian can't speak. She lowers her head, red lipstick trembling as she tries to reapply it with an unsteady hand. The camera lingers on her face, cracked beneath the powder. Studio lights fade to blue. Lana signs off, thanking viewers for seeking the truth with us. In the parking lot, my assistant waits with a message. The National Charity Board is considering Vivian's removal from their council for ethical violations. I text back. Prepare phase 2. I want every cent returned. As my driver pulls away from the station, I stare out at my reflection in the window, the lapel pin shining under passing streetlights. For the first time, I feel the weight of the narrative shifting not just for me, but for anyone who's ever been erased. In the back room, Vivian sits alone under fluorescent lights, reapplying her lipstick with shaking hands. The sound of her own voice, echoing in her head, can't drown out the truth anymore. They called it drama. I called it survival. The lights in the studio burned brighter than the sun itself. Cameras circled the polished set, each lens hungry for the truth or the first sign of blood. The producer's countdown faded into silence. The host adjusted his note cards, and a montage flickered to life on the wall-sized screen. Family holidays, ribbon cuttings, gala photos, all stamped Ray Legacy. Not a single image of me. In my mind, I flashed back to the day I resigned. The boardroom was cold, all chrome and tension. Silas was named CEO for the brand. The press release said, the right masculine image for the company's future. I had written the strategy, drafted the plan, even trained the new directors. Vivian watched me pack up my things, then said quietly, Smart women know when to step back, Eleanor. Some spotlights aren't meant for us. But here I was now, in a chair dead center of the country's most watched legacy interview show. All eyes were on me, and not one belonged to Vivian. She sat to my left, her back ramrod straight, hands folded in her lap, every inch the Mother America thought they knew. If she was afraid, she wore it behind a mask of grace. The host welcomed us with all the practiced warmth of morning TV. Tonight, we're joined by 2 generations of the Ray family, builders, philanthropists, survivors of public scandal. Let's begin at the beginning. Eleanor, your name appears only rarely in public family records. Did you ever feel you'd stepped too far out of the family frame? I kept my voice even. I never stepped out. They just moved the frame, so I wouldn't be seen. A hush. Vivian leaned forward, eyes wet and sparkling. Our family has always loved deeply, but sometimes love means discipline. Eleanor was always independent, strong-willed. She saw the world differently. She paused, searching for the right shade of paint to paint on her face. You can't expect every child to fit the same mold. Sometimes we disagree. That's all. The host looked from Vivian to me. And did you feel supported in those differences? I chose my words like chess pieces. Support isn't erasure. But that's what happened. I was removed from board minutes. The charitable foundation I built was rebranded and handed to Silas. Even internal emails, my authorship vanished. Vivian's smile faltered. We all agreed on those changes. It was about unity, about keeping the family strong in the public eye. Whose unity? I cut in. You told me, more than once, that some foundations aren't meant to be seen. He tried to pivot. But, Eleanor, you could have fought harder to stay. Fighting isn't easy when every door closes behind you. I held up a folder, its contents already approved for airing. This is the last letter my father wrote me before the first stroke. It's never been published, never shared. Vivian stiffened, but she couldn't reach for the letter now. The stage belonged to me. I read aloud, each syllable clear. You are the last name I want remembered, Eleanor. Not because you asked for it, because you've earned it. Every silent battle, every sacrifice unseen. The host was silent. A murmur rose from the audience, shock, anger, maybe even hope. I placed the letter in front of the host, looked straight into the main camera, and said, I'm not here to reclaim money. I'm here to reclaim the truth. They built their legacy on my silence. That ends tonight. For a heartbeat, there was no sound. Then the crowd erupted. Applause, cheers, even the host blinking back tears. In the upper balcony, a young woman pressed her sleeve to her eyes. Later, she would post, Eleanor Ray is the role model we needed for this era. Have you ever decided that silence was no longer an option? That the only way to heal was to finally speak your truth, no matter who tried to stop you? If you've ever found your voice after being silenced, type 9 below or tell me how you broke free. Let's see what happened after the truth was finally spoken. Spotlights narrowed, fading Vivian into the periphery, her profile caught in stark silhouette, ringed in darkness. For the first time, the audience saw her not as a matriarch, but as a shadow of her former self. The cameras lingered for closing words. Vivian tried to gather herself, eyes downcast. The interview ended without her final plea. Backstage, a man in a gray suit waited for me. Ms. Ray, I represent the Federal Foundation Consortium. There's evidence of misused funds by your mother and brother. We'd like to speak with you. We understand you have receipts. I nodded, steady as ever. I have everything you need. He smiled, relieved, and vanished into the bustling green room. Out of habit, I reached to loosen my heels, then slipped them off entirely. The studio's linoleum was cold under my bare feet, but I felt lighter than I had in years. Outside, city lights blurred like memories I no longer needed to keep. Somewhere in the parking lot, Vivian's limousine waited. She sat in the back, shrouded in darkness, hands curled in her lap. She turned her wedding band idly, only to realize it had slipped off, fallen somewhere between studio and street, lost and irretrievable. She stared at her hand as if she could will the ring, the family, the old order, to return. But some things don't come back. I stood in the shadowed garden behind the studio, letting the cool air wash over me. For once, there were no cameras, no script. I looked up at the stars and allowed myself a rare smile. Justice, I thought, isn't loud. Sometimes it's as simple as stepping forward, barefoot, into your own future. They erased me from the records, but I was carved into the foundation. On my last morning in Aspen, I walked the frost-laced path up to the old house, the same house my father once called our anchor. There was a memory, bright as winter sunlight, of him walking beside me along this driveway, his arm wrapped around my shoulder. He said, "Don't force yourself into someone else's picture, Eleanor. One day you'll have a frame of your own, stronger, truer." I didn't understand then. I do now. The foyer still smelled of cedar and lemon oil. I ran my palm over the banister, feeling each groove carved by generations before me. In my father's study, I knelt by the safe and spun the dial for the last time. The door creaked open, and there it was, a single envelope, yellowed at the corners, my name written in his slanted hand. Inside, I found his first will, no lawyers, no legalese. Just a few lines. If the truth is ever distorted, you must restore it with dignity. Let your name mean more than inheritance. Let it mean integrity. My hands didn't shake. I felt calm. Everything that mattered was finally clear. By noon, I sat at my desk, papers, evidence, account ledgers, and every faded photograph that had ever been edited to exclude me. Lana Keene hovered nearby, not with a camera or a notepad, but simply to witness. She'd become more than a reporter. She was now the keeper of the real story. The final press conference was held in the sunroom, windows open to the snowy peaks. Every chair was filled. Journalists, former board members, a handful of locals, and even strangers who just wanted to see history settle, at last, on the right name. I stood before them, every spotlight steady, and spoke as if only my father were listening. The estate of the Ray family has been a source of conflict, pride, and yes, pain. But I'm not here to reclaim what was lost. I'm here to rebuild what was almost destroyed. All my shares, all my rights will be transferred into a trust, a fund for those who have been silenced or controlled by the ones meant to protect them. My name will no longer be a weapon. It will be a shelter. A journalist raised her hand, curiosity shining. "And what will you keep, Eleanor? What's left after all this?" I smiled. "My name. And this house." The room grew quiet, not with doubt, but with a kind of reverence. Through the window, I watched the old Ray estate, signs swing slightly in the wind. After the conference, I walked into the garden, crunching snow underfoot. Near the iron gate, a group of neighborhood children played in the slush, their laughter carrying through the cold air. One little girl with pigtails paused and looked up at me. "Is this your house now?" I knelt to her level and said gently, "It belongs to everyone who ever felt left out." She smiled, and I felt the house breathe easier, as if its very foundation had shifted towards something new. Later, I walked to the gate, toolbox in hand. It felt almost ceremonial, unscrewing the plaque, watching as decades of false legacy fell away. In its place, I hung a new sign, "The Eleanor House, for those who were forgotten." My hands lingered on the brass letters, steady and certain. Slowly, word spread beyond Aspen. Media outlets picked up the story, local at first, then national, then international. Headlines read, "Eleanor Ray redefines restoration, inheritance for the silenced, legacy rebuilt." I sat on the porch, the day's sunlight stretching golden across the floors. In the kitchen, I set a sprig of dried lavender, my father's favorite, into an old ceramic vase. Its scent was quiet and stubborn, a promise that the house would always remember kindness. A neighbor passed by, an elderly woman with white hair and gentle eyes. She nodded to me, no words, just a look of respect, a small, perfect acknowledgement. Inside, Lana gathered her things. She placed a draft article on the entry table. The headline read, not revenge. Restoration. She gave me a nod, then slipped away, leaving the story in my hands. Before bed, I wandered through the now silent halls, stopping in the music room. I found the old tape recorder Dad used to keep and played a worn cassette labeled Winter 2002. The room filled with the soft, unpolished sound of him at the piano, chords echoing against the glass. The notes blended with the hush of falling snow outside. I closed my eyes and, for the first time, felt peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of healing. As evening settled, I sat alone in the parlor. There was no music now, just the soft clink of the radiator and the hush of new snow falling beyond the windows. The quiet wasn't empty. It was full of memory, healing, and peace. A letter arrived, handwritten, uncertain, from a young woman far away. Because of you, my mother finally found the courage to speak out. Thank you, Eleanor. You helped us remember we're not alone. I looked out the window as dusk deepened and snow dusted the porch rails. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to explain, to fight, to prove my place. My name was enough. It was carved into the wood and into the story of this house. If your name was built on erasing others, then it doesn't deserve to last. I watched the last light fade over the mountains. I understood now what my father meant. It was never about revenge, but about returning to yourself, intact, unafraid, and unforgettable. Now, with the storm behind me, I stand in my own home, free and whole at last. What I once lost to silence has been restored with dignity, and my name, no longer erased, is carved into the place I've rebuilt for myself and for others. Life always returns what you plant. When you choose courage over compliance, truth over comfort, and kindness for yourself as fiercely as you give it to others, you shape your own legacy. No amount of betrayal or greed can bury who you are if you refuse to disappear. Have you ever fought to reclaim your worth after being written out by those you trusted? Share your thoughts or your own story in the comments. I read everyone. If this journey moved you, subscribe and stay with me for more real stories about finding your voice after injustice. What topic should we dive into next?